She yours?
Barter to Leroy.
Private barter.
Well, yes, but...
Shut your hole!
All funky colors. Shapes that swing.
It's impossible.
Game of level 15, and it is virtually...
Can I warm you up?
Yes, please.
How's the pie?
So good.
This episode brought to you by the ocean. Apparently, it's not very big and super crowded. Also in association with lesbian space witches. They're diverse and clearly evil, but they want you to think that there is a gray area there for some reason.
Holy crap, everybody. It's DG Podcast once again. Where does this energy come from? I've never this excited.
No, it's not like you.
So good.
I don't know. Maybe it's the wind outside my window that's make me feel like the apocalypse has come. Or the apocalypse for Star Wars has come. How's it going, Jason?
Yeah, seriously.
Star Wars.
It could be better, but, you know, it is what it is. A lot of driving around this week. So I went with my wife to a conference. That was a 2-hour drive each way. And then I went to my brother-in-law's wedding, and that was a 4.5-hour drive each way. So, yeah, great. Let's see. I picked up a new book by one of my favorite authors. His name is Peter S. Beagle. He wrote the Last Unicorn.
Right
he
on.
recently released a book called "I'm Afraid You've Got Dragons." And yeah, so the premise, at least at the start, is that the main character, he is a dragon exterminator. It's been, passed down through his from father to son kind of thing. He was his father's apprentice, and et cetera, et cetera. And he would much rather be something else, anything but a dragon exterminator. And he ends up befriending the valet of a prince, and the valet is dead set on making the prince out to be heroic. And so he says, okay, this is what we're going to do. You're going to find dragons for the prince to kill. The prince is going to look heroic, and I'll teach you how to be a valet so you can get out of this line of dragon exterminating. Of course, everything goes haywire with their plans. The thing is that I'm not sure whether it's supposed to be a comedy or not. But sometimes it's funny, and sometimes it's like way too serious.
You need somebody to sort of turn to the camera.
It's been really good.
Sort of thing.
What was that?
Do you need somebody to sort of turn to the camera and wink, or just enough
to
be like,
Yeah, dragons. We got them.
Yeah, he. I like the books that I've read by Peter S. Beagle, and I actually got to meet him and get his autograph once a long time ago. But yeah, if you're unfamiliar with the Last Unicorn, it was turned into an animated movie by Rankin Bass years and years ago, and it had the soundtrack from the movie was by the rock band America. So yeah,
Yeah, a classic animated
great.
film from back in the day, but
Yeah.
well, Jason's
But
saying
anyway, I picked that up and read most of it in a day. It was really good, really engaging. So um, apart from that, I almost, because of how busy I was this week, I was sitting there putting off watching the Rings of Power, and it got to today, and I'm like, oh shoot, I haven't watched episode 2 yet, because it was always there in the back of my mind, but it was always like, oh, that I can't be bothered
you've
to
always
make
got
the
so
effort
much time.
to watch the stupid thing.
Yeah.
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 The thing is it's that slog. It's like, oh, I know I got to do it, but I don't want to. But I did it. I did watch it today.
And guess
And it
what?
was as
I
bad
also watched it
as I was
today.
betting. So.
And guess where Ross is currently?
It's punishment before you can join.
Speaking of dragons,
In this last week, got it.
sometimes I forget to appropriately introduce Silver. His
Yeah.
how's it going?
The proper introduction it is, because I did watch Rings of Power. I'm caught up on that, but I
On your
also watched
homework?
another thing.
Oh, what else did you watch?
I did my homework. I watched both seasons of The Tiger King.
Oh my gosh. Oh my god. Didn't I tell you to watch? Did you watch that alone or with your dad?
I watched it with my mother.
Yeah. Did I not tell you it is the craziest flippin' show I could possibly describe?
Oh my gosh, it is. I thought it'd be about tigers. It is so much more than that.
It's so much more than about tigers. Good lord, that show. Like, if I recall before, I was sitting there talking to you, going like, "Oh, you should see Tiger King." You're like, "Oh, I don't know." It's like, no, like the least important thing is the tigers. like the crime and stuff is the most important.
So crazy. The whole thing with Dawn, the big cat rescues my husband or whatever. My gosh.
Literally a guy dies in the show. Somebody loses an arm.
Yeah, someone loses an arm. One guy
cow.
gets killed. He shoots himself.
Craziest reality show I've ever seen.
Oh my gosh.
Oh,
I know.
And every character in that show. Look, I know people listening be like, "Well, whatever, Tiger King." Look, she's never seen it before, and I'm all excited because this is fresh for her. But flippin', every character in that show is a psychopath. Everyone. Character.
They weren't lying when they said big cat people are nuts. They were not kidding.
Yeah.
They're all nuts.
His obsession with Carol Baskin, who may or may not have killed her husband.
Yeah, her.
Who is also insane.
I don't know. It's pretty suspicious. I think she did it.
It's very possible that she super killed her husband and maybe fed him to the tigers. Maybe.
Oh gosh. And the one guy who's like getting all like the baby tigers for people to take pictures with, and then he goes, "Oh, they're useless when they get older," and supposedly he gasses them or something.
Oh,
like,
Vegas
what?
guy who takes over the tiger place from what's his name?
From Joe Exotic.
Yes.
What was his name? Like Jeff Lowe.
Oh, and
He's
then the guy that has a harem of women that work for him at his tiger place.
Yeah, he's the one that was supposedly gassing the baby tigers.
My gosh. We're going to have an outside of podcast conversation about this later, but that's exciting.
Yeah, okay.
Was it because of my suggestion
I've watched in a long time
that pushed you to do it?
What was that?
Was it my suggestion that pushed you to do it?
Yes. In fact, when you texted me earlier and asked, "Hey, what you doing?" I was doing that.
Uh-huh. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you're all with the rest of us on the Tiger King bandwagon and all the craziness that was involved with that.
On the same Tiger King page.
Yes. Now, when I talk about Tiger King, you'll know exactly what I'm saying. How insane it was.
And
They tried to
losing
do
my mind.
They tried to do a show about Carol, and it kind of sucked with actors and stuff.
Yeah, I thought something like that came out, and then I never heard anything of it.
Yeah, it
but-
wasn't good.
Yeah, it was like
wasn't
a courtroom thing about the hitman and everything, right?
Yeah,
Oh,
someone
not
may
to
or
mention
may
the
not have
hitman,
hired
my gosh,
somebody
that's a whole
to
nother
murder
thing.
Carol Baskin.
For
It's all
$3,000,
recorded. Anyway,
affordable.
well, that's super exciting. As far as I'm concerned, what in the world? I've been playing, believe it or not, a lot of VR. I've been
Really?
playing Arizona Sunshine
Trek?
too, and
Oh.
killing zombies, which I found out to my dismay that when you put on a VR headset, time goes by quickly, and when you take it off, 2 hours has passed, so you got to keep track because you're sort of trapped in the little world with the thing on. On top of that, I've been playing Metal Gear, and you might ask yourself, "Oh, Metal Gear Solid." It's like, no, NES Metal Gear. That's what I've been playing. The OG NES Metal Gear, and I am 80% through it. I got the Metal Gear Solid pack or whatever, and so I'm slowly going through the games one at a time in release order, not chronological order. Because if it's chronological order, it would be like Metal Gear Solid 3 would be the first one. But, what are you going to do?
I can't wait to play Assassin's Creed with the Kinect.
Do the flipping assassin suicide jump off of your couch or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah,
that thing is amazing.
I've watched some crap anime. I watched some good anime. I watched Noragami, which I like. Noragami's good. And you might be going,
oh, you've
Noragami
watched... forever.
You might go, oh, didn't you see that before? And it's like, I did. I'm watching with my mother, who surprisingly liked it, as silly as the show is. But we are watching Noragami.
And you watch that again?
Yes. And
I think
Ross.
I saw, like, one season?
There are 2 seasons.
2, 3. Oh, okay. Yeah, I've only seen one.
Yeah, there are 2 seasons in Noragami. I still think it's fun.
Nice.
And if you know anything about Japanese culture, been to Japan, it actually hits a little bit differently because of the culture they have around their Shinto and Buddhist shrines and whatnot, particularly Shinto in this regard, and how you throw in a coin.
I liked Noragami. It was a lot of fun.
You throw in a coin and you say a prayer to the god. And hopefully the god listens and grants your prayer. And basically he's a crap god that has no attention and no shrine. So he does like menial tasks for a coin. Like he does delivery jobs or covers somebody's shift at a convenience store or whatever. And so it's like, it's kind of the same relationship if they pray to him for something, but he's really just like a menial task person doing it for the coin.
And the awesome thing is that he will only accept 5 yen.
Yeah.
He won't accept anything else.
Well, because he's trying to get his
and
name
that's because
out.
the 5 yen is the luckiest coin.
Well, the 5 and the 500.
Yeah.
It's like they're the ones with the holes in them, essentially. I think 500 has a hole in it. There are 2 coins that have holes in them. Regardless, the show's a lot of fun.
I know the 5 does. I don't recall for sure on the other one, but you're probably
the 5
right.
is supposed to be lucky, and it's supposed to be usually be the one that you throw into the shrine box or the temple box.
Yeah.
Is that the same one, the same temple where you ring the bell to wake up the god, or is that a different one?
Because notoriously Shinto gods are sleepy gods.
Have that, and some don't.
Well, Shinto shrines do, Buddhist temples don't. There's a difference.
But they still have the you can still make donations either way. But yeah.
Yes. Well, and you're supposed to conduct yourself differently if it's a Shinto shrine or a Buddhist temple. Because Buddhist temples, you don't clap and make a noise because you're not supposed to wake up the god because it's a different religion. The Buddhist temple, you go up and you bow and whatnot. The Shinto temple, you're supposed to clap twice to get him to pay attention. Be like, "Hey, I'm saying a prayer. Dang it!" Sometimes they have a bell where you shake the bell to try and make sure he's awake.
I'm down here.
Yeah, well, notoriously, I guess Shinto gods are sleepy, and they don't pay attention if you don't really like make noise to try and get their attention. If you ever watch like one of those Shinto festivals where they take the god out on the big palanquin and they carry him around.
Sleep.
Yeah, they bounce him up and down to keep him awake, I guess, because it makes them happy and they're sleepy or whatever. It's an interesting concept for a faith, I would say. We did our best when we were there to be as respectful as possible.
Yeah, we very much tried to abide by the what's the word I'm looking for here? The
rituals,
customs for like washing hands and stuff before going into the shrine, and trying to not be, the stereotype of the ugly American tourist. We tried very hard not to be those people.
Did you YouTube tutorial this?
I did.
We did go on YouTube and look some stuff up. Yeah.
Yeah. To make sure we had exactly how you're supposed to conduct yourself at temples and shrines. And for a while,
I constantly worry about that if I go to Japan.
Yeah, well, for
what
a while,
was really awesome was when we were waiting.
Go ahead.
When we were waiting for that shrine to open back up, like after lunch, and so we were waiting with those older Japanese people, and they were asking about where we had been, and we were showing them our Goshwin, and they were like, "Oh, we've got that one, and I haven't been to that one yet." And
well, and she
really
didn't
cool.
speak English, the old woman sitting next to me, but she opened her book and showed off one of the shrines. And I knew what shrine that was because that was Meiji Shrine. So I immediately flipped over and I was like, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got that one.
Eh?
Eh? Eh? You're not going to best me on my Goshwin. We filled 2 of them. You get a little
I've been here for 2 days. Look at this.
Well, I mean, that became sort of our trip revolved around visiting as many as we could to get the stamps. As fun as the stamps were as a marker of what we did, we got to see a bunch of the cultural heritage. I don't know why this podcast has turned into a podcast about Japan. Japan's a fun place. If you go
foreshadowing.
If you go be respectful and conduct yourself as one should expect you to. I think my main impression,
anyway, here's Yasuke.
Right. Well, at the very least, I didn't want to. I had the initial impression of going up to the shrine and throwing a coin in would have been a bad idea because I don't believe in that faith and it'd be disrespectful. But everything said it would have been disrespectful not to show up and throw a coin in if I'm patronizing the temple or shrine, because the coins help maintain the temple or shrine. So the expectation is I should show up and throw a coin if I'm visiting, which meant, well, if I'm going to throw a coin in, I have to do it properly. If I'm visiting somebody else's holy location, I need to wash my flipping hands, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And there's a specific way you wash your hands. But Japan's fun. Believe it or not, Japan has, I think this year or this last year, has hit its max, like its record for visitors. Like it is stupid busy.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was stupid busy when we were there. But it is now just...
And that was right before COVID.
Replete with tourists. And your expectation might be that Japan is... How do I say this? Mostly full of weebs and Westerners and Europeans trying to do the Japanese thing. Believe it or not, most tourists to Japan are from Asia. I think it's like 65% of tourists that go to Japan are from Asia.
Yeah.
So they're Chinese,
there were a lot
Korean,
of, Koreans,
Thai,
Chinese.
Hong Kong, whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not mostly Westerners, weirdly enough. We saw some.
One of the things that was interesting, Oh shoot, no, I don't remember. Go on, maybe it'll come back to
It
me.
doesn't matter. You know, not to push bury the lead, but clearly we're going to step into talking about Star Wars and what's going on. The Acolytes come out recently. It's all the internet is talking about, whether or not that they're lambasting because it's stupid, because it ruins the lore. And believe it or not, it's not great. And that's not just personal opinion. It is essentially the review of the general audience. Here, let me pull up. Let's see, the Rotten Tomatoes. And I'm going somewhere with this. Let's see. Here's the Rotten Tomatoes. No, I'm not going to enable ads. Okay, so the Rotten Tomatoes for the audience score is 15%. Now, by and large, we
15,
ignore
that's
we-
so
well,
low.
Oh,
we
gosh.
ignore the 84% because the 84% is the professional reviewers
That's
who
the
are often paid.
that's the people patting themselves on the back. Yeah.
Yeah, for access and whatnot. So it's at 15%. You might go,
Yeah.
oh, that's really bad. Believe it or not, this is the lowest scored Star Wars content ever produced, period. It is lower than the Ewok shows. It is lower than the Star Wars Holiday Special. 15% is the lowest
The
any show.
notoriously bad holiday
Right.
special.
Any show that has been reviewed, period, this is the lowest. And you might go, oh, well, reviews and review bombing are not an accurate measure about what's going on with Star Wars. Well, believe it or not, depending on the numbers you look at, this is the least watched of all time, or the second least watched. It's sort of a
Right.
cross between it and maybe Ahsoka. So objectively, as best you can, one can say the Acolyte seems to have fallen on its face and is not doing well, setting aside all of the lore changes and whatnot. And it's hard to say. So on the build up to the Acolyte, one might think that as they built up to the show, they might be promoting it or trying to get everybody hyped for it. Most of the build-up seemed to be attacking fans for not liking the show before it came out. If you recall, they were pre-accusing everybody of misogyny, pre-accusing everybody of being racist or bigoted before the show even came out, which is a bad sign because they anticipate it being disliked across the board, right?
Yeah, you don't start attacking the fans like that before you've released
Before
it.
it comes out, yeah.
Unless unless you're trying to get ahead of what you see is going to happen. And so yeah, it just feels so much like they were more interested in getting ahead of the backlash as opposed to um, and this article that you pulled up here is the perfect example
Yeah,
of
that's
this.
why I
We're trying to get on top of this before it can go too far.
The title being that
Now,
the Acolyte isn't
was
ruining
this
Star
the-
Wars. You are. Why aren't you
this the
watching
one
and
that I-
liking the content we make? You're the problem. It's not the garbage we put out. You are the problem. You're the piece of crap that's not
Now, was this
enjoying
the one that
content
I
we're
found,
featuring.
or was this a different one?
I found this one.
Okay. I wasn't sure because I may have read this one.
Well, that's fine. We could bring up one of the other articles if you think it applies to what we're talking about.
Well, no.
Just let me know.
I read an article, and there's a part in this article that is and basically the article comes down to or the hack that wrote this. No, I'm serious. Basically, the person who wrote this article, the reason that they give let's see, by Livy Scott. So the reason that is given for the backlash against the Acolyte is because the white male fans feel that they own the franchise.
Okay.
That's
Oh,
the
yes, I read
reason.
that. My gosh.
And I'm like, no, we don't feel that we own the
That is such
franchise.
a,
But
that's a
ownership has
stupid
never been
reason.
you know, it's so dumb. It's
Well,
so dumb.
here, let me.
Ownership has never been what this is about for us. Go
Well,
ahead.
no, it's ruining the show, or ruining the franchise that we like. Let me at least point out Kathleen Kennedy, who's in charge of Lucasfilm, flat out said that the biggest problem with Star Wars is that it's a male brand. So they know it's mostly dominated by men or even just white men. And then the complaint is, I don't like it that mostly white men consume the Star Wars content. And so when I try and change things and then they hate it and then they don't show up to watch it, how dare you dislike something that we're clearly trying to make not for you? Look, I've heard a bunch of comments, and this is how resigned the audience is now. I've heard a bunch of comments where it's like, well, what's your problem? Don't you think that the LGBTQ community or the diversity community or whatever, don't you think they deserve a Star Wars too? And it's like, well, first of all, it wasn't exclusive, like excluding them. But you know what? Fine. You can have it.
It never
because
has
you've
been.
so ruined Star
Why can't you
Wars.
just like it?
You've so ruined Star Wars now, you can have it. You can have Star Wars. We're
Yep.
all just going to leave. It's not worth it anymore.
Yep.
Star Wars
And
is
don't be
dead.
surprised if the minority that you're targeting here can't support you.
Star Wars
Oh,
is
yes,
dead.
that's the
Star
thing
Wars
I want to
isn't
point
worth
out with this article.
Uh-huh.
Toward the bottom of it, I have it here so I can read it. At the very bottom of the article, they say, there's no easy way out, but something has to change. Otherwise, this vocal minority will end up ruining Star Wars for the rest of us. So they're calling people that don't like all this stuff in the Acolyte the minority.
Well,
Sorry to tell you, it's the majority.
It is the majority. And how
Clearly.
is saying I dislike something ruining it?
If it
for you?
wasn't,
how is that my fault?
well,
You can enjoy
because
it. I don't care. Like it.
Yeah.
So
what I wonder is the people that they're trying to get to bring on board here, the LGBTQ community. I'm wondering if the LGBTQ community actually supports this too, or if they look at this and say, "No, you guys are morons," because
maybe,
Yeah, it feels like Doctor
there's
Who.
got
We're
to
not
be
watching.
something. Yeah,
well,
there's
let's talk
got to be
about
something there that even the people that they're trying to market this for are sitting there going, "No, you
Well, let's
guys are
talk about,
telling really bad stories."
let's talk about Leslie Headland and some interesting commentary that she had about Star Wars. All right?
This is like what we understand to be Star Wars, like the idea that like that only came from George Lucas, that only George Lucas holds the key for what we understand to be Star Wars is just untrue.
So, according to the creator of the show, if you heard that, it was a little quiet.
Yeah, no, I heard it.
Leslie Headland said that according to her, that the idea that George Lucas is the only source for Star Wars is simply untrue. He created the show.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what you want from me.
I mean,
that's
you
the
could
idea.
say
The idea is to distance.
you
from
could say that
George.
there are
Go ahead.
other authors now that have contributed, but all of those authors had to get authorization from Lucas
Well, that's not even
before
the
they
point.
could contribute.
She changes how the Force works in the Acolyte.
Right.
And her attitude is that
Yeah.
George Lucas is not the sole voice on what makes Star Wars, even though he's the one that set the foundation and created it off the top of his head, albeit copied some other content out there. But And then the nerve to sit there and say, well, the idea that Star Wars is only a George Lucas thing. It's like, what?
Yeah.
Do we need to listen to that again?
Yeah,
Do you want another impression of what
This
she
is like
said?
what we understand to be Star Wars, like the
No.
idea that like that only came from George Lucas. That
She's a hack, just like all the rest of them that are contributing to this disaster.
Right. So
That's no good.
So now, like Silver. So now we have this show called The Acolyte that is changing things for better or worse, however you want to feel about it. Let's hear a comment from one of the people involved in The Acolyte. All right.
I would say a battle for power. I mean, the best parts about Star Wars is there is no good or evil. It depends on what side you're standing on, truly. You know what I mean? That you can look at any angle and see yourself relayed through all the characters, Darth to Luke. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, so this is one of
No,
the main
there
actors.
clearly is a good versus evil. That was the whole point.
No. Darth Vader is a misunderstood villain.
Oh my gosh.
Jason, you know what? We're not done yet. But and I know I'm
Seriously.
leading everybody in a direction, but
I've been trying to figure out a way to explain to people what this is like to us. We've been fans of Star Wars since the first movie came out back in it came out before I was born, actually, and but I saw it like I said, I used to watch the first Star Wars movie back to back almost every Saturday that I could with Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark. Anyway, the thing is that this to me feels like, okay, let's take Pride and Prejudice and turn it into a Three Stooges slapstick movie.
Well,
can you just imagine
clearly,
all the people who are romantics and just steeped in Pride and Prejudice just ripping their hair out? I mean, they already did kind of slaughter Pride and Prejudice. They did Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, which was so bad.
Anyway, Jason.
So bad.
Jason, I'm leading us somewhere. This is going somewhere, so bear with me.
Go for it.
All right. Here's him again talking much later about the show in an interview with Collider. Okay. So there's more here, but I'm going to give you a bit of a preface. So when it comes to these press junkets, when it comes to doing these announcements, they're very hamstrung in what they're able to say. All right. And if anybody's in the know when it comes to Hollywood,
if they talk too much about what's going on, then they're going to give away the story and they can't.
Hold on, Jason. Anyone in the know when it comes to Hollywood, they're very aware that they usually have things like handlers and that sort of thing. He can't say much, but I guarantee you that the stuff he's saying, he's been encouraged to say. That he needs to say, well, the show is more than just good and evil. In the press release, in the trailers and advertisements, there are voiceovers for The Acolyte where they're talking about how there's no longer just good and evil. This is a concept for the show that they are pushing, not just through press junkets, but through their advertisements for the show. And he's going to go on and say some interesting things. and people trying to correct him that there is good and evil. And this is his response.
Why? Because it wasn't Anakin, but
Okay, so despite the nerd rage-induced response to the fact that Anakin didn't blow up the Death Star, which is a clear indicator that the guy doesn't really know much about Star Wars, which is, I mean, I don't
Right.
blame Actor Man for
obviously
saying
doesn't know
stupid
much.
thing. Right. But the comment of that there's different sides to the story and different perspectives, they want to ingrain in you because that's the messaging that they're putting in the Acolyte. Because the Acolyte in the show has a faction of, let's be frank, lesbian space witches who are depicted as potentially the opposite side or the evil side of things. But the show is actively encouraging you to say, hey, there's no good or bad, that there are different sides to this thing. And they display the Jedi, for someone who's seen the show, as essentially a police force and potentially bad in the show.
Oh gosh.
Like, you get the idea that maybe you might have a scene where the Jedi are kneeling on some guy's neck. That's how obvious it is that they're displayed as like a galactic police force that people don't trust. So now the Jedi are no longer simply a force for good. What if the Jedi are cynically bad? And in the recent episode we had with the Acolyte, they revealed that potentially the Jedi perhaps committed a horrible atrocity and these Jedi have been trying to cover it up. And you might go, oh, well, you know, they didn't really show it. We don't fully know what happened. Well, then why did one of the Jedi that were there commit suicide later? Having been involved.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
With the
See,
events that
this
happened
is
on the
one of the things that is completely wrong with storytelling nowadays. Instead of having the whole monomyth, the whole hero's journey, what you have to do is you have to tear down what's good and right. It's
Well,
like we can't
that's the
have the
knee-jerk
Jedi be the paragons
style
of
of
virtue
writing.
and order in the galaxy. We have to have there's actually a bad guy. The lesbian space witches are actually good and the Jedi are actually bad. It's like, no, that's why your story is going down the tubes and why nobody likes it. Because instead of actually telling a story where we get a likable protagonist that learns from their mistakes and that gets mentored and actually does something heroic with what they've been given, we get this garbage.
The Force in the show is implied to be female.
Yeah,
they artificially create two.
This
twins.
is like saying gravity is male.
Well, and you're correct. Well, and they also imply that the Force no longer has a will; that it's just an energy force.
And see, now that to me is a little bit weird to begin with, because there was never like a will of the Force until the prequel movies came along.
No, it always
which,
existed,
that's an addition
if not
that was
explicit.
created,
No,
but an addition that was created by George Lucas. So whatever. But yeah, the fact that they're retconning so much stuff to make it fit what they want to do with the story rather than making their story fit in the already established universe, that is what, and that to me is what the biggest problem is. It's not, they keep talking about this ownership and that we, white male fans of Star Wars are claiming ownership. No, we're not claiming ownership. What we're doing is we're saying, look, there's already established lore. They're already established by the creator of Star Wars.
Yeah,
this
but
is
it's
how
no
the Force
longer
works.
his.
This is what goes on, and you are screwing it up.
Not only
that's why we don't like it. It has nothing
here's
to
the
do
thing,
with ownership.
Ross, they've now explicit, or Jason, they've now explicitly said that it's no longer George's, and he doesn't have exclusivity when it comes to dictating what is Star Wars.
No, you're correct.
They're undermining.
It is no longer his. He sold it off to
that
Disney. But
They're undermining actively the idea that pointing at George's original content, saying this doesn't fall within the original established lore that has been created. They're pointing at George and saying he is not the sole arbitrator of what makes Star Wars anymore, or if he ever was.
Yeah, and
because they're trying to undermine what Star Wars was across the board.
We
now.
get this garbage.
No. This show is extremely important, and I think you're missing sort of the overall meta of it. They're actively trying to undermine the classic concept of what makes Star Wars
in order to
remake it,
to basically create what they want.
Yes, to remake it into something they wanted.
And they're getting upset with the fans
that we don't like
and calling us gatekeepers and crap like that, and saying that we claim ownership when we're just pointing out they're not following the lore, and they're sitting there going, well, we don't have to follow the lore. It's like, fine, but you're going to alienate everyone who would have gladly followed you and gladly watched this stuff. Well, so that's all down on you, not us.
Not even just
We're just saying, hey, look, you did this wrong.
Hold on. Not even just the lore. It's just a bad show. It's not good.
Well, that too.
Yeah.
I mean, on top of it not being true to the lore of Star Wars, it's also just really poor writing. We can't get behind it because it's bad writing and it's no longer Star Wars.
People are talking about, well, when was Star Wars ruined? Is it this? Is it this? So let's go back. Universally loved, even if people might have a problem with the Last Jedi, the original trilogy. Then they have the prequels, and people had a lot of problems with the depictions in the prequels and stuff. But there is some underlying love, and it still plays within George Lucas's universe and how he conceptualizes it. And then the sequels completely abandon things. Not only poorly written shows, but inconsequentially confusing and really stupid and poorly written main characters. And the plot goes nowhere, to the point where it is so universally damaged the brand that as we get to stuff like Solo, which, by the way, is one of the only Star Wars movies to have lost money, then we have things like Solo, and there was a glimmer of hope with Mandalorian until it got worse in season 3. I don't think Star Wars is redeemable. I don't think you can save it. I think Star Wars is dead. I don't think, with all of the damage that they've done to the lore, the damage that they've done to the fan base, how much trust has been lost, how much they insist that they want to change everything from what made it good before to try and attract audiences that don't like Star Wars. And then they get angry when we don't follow along with them because, hey, we spent hundreds of millions. By the way, the Acolyte cost them $180 million.
Oh gosh.
And now we're getting the show that is completely undermining what was established as what the Force is, what the Jedi are. Now the Jedi are potentially bad guys. Hey, maybe the Jedi aren't always the good guys that everybody think they are. Maybe the Force isn't exactly what you think it is. Maybe there really isn't a good or a bad. Maybe there's a mix between the two. Hey, did you ever think about the fact that
for a reason?
Well, yes, but hey, did you ever think about the fact that Luke killed millions of people on the Death Star? Maybe he's not so good. They're deliberately trying to undermine the lore on purpose so that they can reshape it into what they want it to be in the future.
The only reason for that weapon is to destroy a planet and wipe out the entire civilization of that planet.
But that's not the point. The point is to undermine Star Wars. The point is to undermine Star Wars and then look you in the eye and say, well, maybe Luke wasn't as great a person, even though he said Anakin incorrectly.
Right.
The goal is to reshape Star Wars into what they want it to be. And apparently it's going to include a lot of feminist, LGBTQ messaging, which fine if that's what you're going to do, but we don't have to go along with you.
He's here.
Don't be surprised when we all check out.
Was that
and you lose millions and millions of dollars.
No, don't be surprised.
Yeah.
We
Don't be
have been
surprised.
checking out. Hey, look, it's Ross. We have been checking out from the very beginning. Look at what happened with the sequel trilogy. Look at what happened with Solo. Look at what happened with the declining viewership with Star Wars content across the board. We have checked out. It's not we are checking out. It's dead. The dog is dead.
Right.
It's been rotting
Star Wars is dead.
and it's been rotting on the couch for weeks now, and nobody wants to remove it, and they keep putting stuff on it to make it smell better. But it's not getting better. This dog's dead.
Oh,
Star Wars is dead.
They keep spraying it with Febreze.
There's no redemption. There's no way to bring people back to make them like it anymore. There's no rolling back.
Basically, they'd have to apologize.
No,
And,
apology. They would literally have to burn all of the previous content and pretend like it never happened.
They apologize and light it on fire.
Kathleen Kennedy would have to sit
We're
in
sorry
front of a
for what
crowd
we did, and then
no, she would have to sit in front of a crowd of Star Wars fans and commit seppuku because she has dishonored the rest of us. That's the only way this is redeemed.
You'd
And
have
the
to
goal,
apologize
the goal
for
is
your
to
bad
ruin
fan fiction
what
of
you
Star
love.
Wars you're claiming is like, oh, it's true to the original story.
It's not. The goal is to change it from what you love. That's the goal. But we've pounded this into the ground a little bit too much. And we have been joined by Ross. How's it going, Ross?
Oh,
okay.
just wonderful. I just finished the Rings of Power episode I was supposed to watch, and boy, it's so good.
It's no good. So we're gonna save Rings of Power to the end of this podcast. Excitingly enough, the Rings of Power review that we did is our most viewed episode, which isn't a lot,
Hey,
but it's now our most viewed episode. So good job,
but it's
Silver.
something.
Good job, everybody. We are going to talk about the news, and I've been delaying until Ross gets here because
Sorry, I'm sorry, everybody.
me and Ross spent a bunch of time talking about oh my gosh, E3 or whatever.
The new not E3, the replacements for E3.
Yeah, I'm going to push that to the side for a moment. So me and Ross said there were problems with the audio. I kind of predicted that when talking to you, and there were copyright dings to hell on that thing.
Shocked to hear this.
But me and Ross sat down and watched all the not E3 content that we could get our hands on, except for maybe the PlayStation, but I watched that later. And me and him sat down and marked out what we thought overall of our opinions. I'm going to bring up the Xbox Showcase, and we're going to go over a little bit of the games that are coming out. And Ross, why don't you give me your overall impression of what Xbox had to show for what's coming?
So Xbox is definitely trying to. I mean, you mentioned it in our conversation that is recorded and that will hopefully be up at some point. But
I don't know.
There definitely seem to be kind of courting the original Xbox crew, which is kind of your dude bros.
Which they should be. That's a good idea.
Very, very obviously, like the first couple of things on here are like very, you have Black Ops 6, Doom, and State of Decay 3, which are all very dude-oriented sort of games. Well, that's what they ended the show with, which I think is also Xbox trying to be like, see, remember our good exclusives we used to have that we pounded into the ground a few years ago? Anyway, please come back.
Please come back and love us.
I don't know. That there was a couple of things that I was interested in. I think there's a couple you were interested in that we would. I think our standard was without Game Pass, I would pay money for this.
And there were very few. Very few.
That's a good metric.
Well, so
yeah, and there wasn't a ton.
We sat down and gave a thumbs up or a thumbs down for each of them, and then we added up our thumbs up and thumbs down, and I came out negative and Ross came out positive. Okay, but that's
barely positive.
That's the problem, though. Wow. Even though I had a positive impression of some of them, if you sat down and said, well, which one of these will I actually fork out money for? It came down to maybe one or two. which is not a good sign overall.
No,
because
that's
as much as
definitely bad
I might have a
there.
positive impression of Doom, I don't think I'm ever going to buy Doom because I'm just not a Doom guy. So I thought the game looked good, and it might be good for the audience that's coming, but I'm not forking out money for it, which is not a good sign for a lot of people down the road.
Right.
Because there's a lot of content here where I'm like, eh.
Yeah.
Overall, Black Ops seemed to mostly be positive. There's been a lot of negative reception because of the skin and the pushing. They've pushed the holy month of June onto their multiplayer stuff, and apparently they're including different colored like guns and bullets that you shoot at people. So if you were so inclined and were
nice.
transsexual, that you are welcome to shoot.
That's what I always wanted. Different colored bullets.
Yep.
Just killing them with it.
Indiana Jones, mostly
Guess what game
positive,
I'm
except
buying
for
next?
the modern-ish woman that seemed out of place. In
Yeah,
the
that was the
trailer.
weirdest thing. Everything else about that game looked just fine. I mean, it is strange it's in first person, but I'm not
That is weird for an
opposed.
Indiana Jones game.
But
Yeah.
then you just have this woman who, it's not that she's even strong woman TM copyright. It's that she literally looks like she stepped out of 2022 or like 2019 or something. It's the weirdest thing. I have no idea who
is
she is as a
weird.
character, but she just looks wrong. It's the
Also
weirdest
has a leather
thing.
jacket and also super tough, and you know, it's just like, ugh. All right, let's
Yeah,
have
I'm holding out hope on
contrasting-
that one, but
Yeah. Gears seemed all right, but we didn't get much besides the hype trailers, so it's hard to say what we're really getting out of it.
well, it's a big shift away from what the last two were, because the last two were like, look, it's Marcus Phoenix's son and the young crew. They're so young, and and this one it's like,
Yeah,
look,
one of
it's
them's a
Marcus and
girl.
Dom again, and it's Emergence Day. So
It's like they
please
knew
play our games
nobody
again,
wanted
please.
to go to the hip young crew because the last game was just terrible.
Yeah.
Doom seemed cool, but Doom always seems
real
cool.
bad.
Avowed,
they would have to really screw that up.
Avowed seemed like fantasy, whatever.
I don't know how I feel about the setting for the new Doom game. Isn't it supposed to be like Doom? What is it? Medieval or something like that?
Not.
It just looked like it was in hell to me, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, he had a sword.
Yeah, but he had one in the last one, didn't he?
Yeah, and he had guns and stuff.
Again, both of us played a lot of Doom, so you know.
I played a bit.
Or,
I played the OG and a bit of the new one. But, yeah.
You know what? The one thing you and I noticed, Rhett, was purple magic. Boy, that's sure a trend right now in games, I guess. Just purple everywhere. And it's
Practically
usually magic.
across the board, the color purple was included in a lot of these trailers.
And it's
the age of
really
purple.
odd. Like I don't. Yeah, Dragon Age of Purple.
Yeah, Dragon Age, which looks terrible, and we're not going to try and bog down this. We still have Rings of Power review to go, so we're going to blow through as much of this as quickly as possible. But
should we just go over the
explicit
Xbox showcase, the ones we pay money for?
Well, just to point out a few of these side things, the explicit director of Dragon Age Veilguard said that all of the characters are going to be pansexual. It was very clear in the trailer that it was not the Dragon Age we remember, and it is purple and modern millennials running around with swords, as far as I could tell. Assassin's Creed Shadows, blah blah blah. And what are your standouts for the Xbox showcase?
So the ones for me that I am very interested in and would pay money for, it's Perfect Dark. They're making a new Perfect Dark game, and it looks, based on the trailer, really good. I'm really excited for that game. I hope it's good.
There's been some negativity, Ross.
What's that?
There's been some negativity about Perfect Dark, believe it or not.
What?
I don't think it's fair, but a lot of them been accusing them depicting the main character as being too masculine, which I didn't think was a problem. I would prefer her being a bit...
I didn't notice that at all.
Yeah, I'm not super worried about that, but the director did say that the primary focus of their studio and the game is inclusivity, as opposed to maybe gameplay and making it fun, which is not a good sign.
Oh. Well, the trailer made it look fun.
Yeah.
You know, anytime there's inclusivity and diversity, what I want to do is I want to be hired as a diversity officer, and my job is basically to root out diversity because, you know,
Well, what's
if it's
funny is
diversity, if
Perfect
it's
Dark was already
diversity
diverse.
for just diversity's sake, no.
Perfect
Well, they
Dark
had
was
an
already
alien.
diverse. You're right.
His name was
and,
Elvis.
And we don't have time for
Elvis?
this. And we don't have time for this. So, what else you got?
The other one was Atomfall, which is by Rebellion, the good folks who make Sniper Elite games. Probably one of the last few mid-market developers that exist. That looks really good. It looks like British Fallout for like just a real quick one-sentence thing.
Yes, that's
Um,
essentially what
British
our impression
Fallout or
was
British Stalker.
British Fallout.
Yeah.
Indiana
And
Jones,
then
maybe.
the last one, Gears of War.
Gears of War. Metal Gear Solid, probably for me. Maybe Gears of War. Yeah, those were the standouts. So mostly Metal Gear, Indiana Jones, probably Gears of War is a major maybe. Fable looked like a piece of trash.
Doesn't look good.
No.
It looks better than the last trailer, but boy, that's a really low bar. So I wouldn't really count that as anything good.
And by the way, me and Ross sat and watched 4 hours of trailer reveals and whatnot. Then we got Game Fest, Lego Horizon. I know Jason had an article about that really quickly. Jason.
Yeah, it was kind of an interesting article. The person who wrote it was like, I have no idea who they're marketing this Lego Horizon. Where'd it go? It was no, I can't find it off the
It doesn't matter.
Top of my head right here. But basically, it was like, I don't know what. Oh, who is Lego Horizon Adventures for? Because
who like Lego
I guess the person. The person who wrote the article is like, well, yeah, you could be marketing this so that this is a game that people who are fans of the series could play with their kids. But why not just have them play the game?
I
It feels so random to have it focus on Horizon.
Yes,
well,
Why that
especially
of all
because like
things?
you fight robots. It's not like it's a bloody game.
No.
Yeah. And so it just the whole focus for the game just seemed a little bit odd. It's like, well, we're doing this, but you could just have your kids play the game. So yeah.
All right. Anyway, your standout impressions of the Summer Game Fest, Ross.
So the ones I marked as interesting to me was that Delta Force Black Hawk Down. So it's like the single player component of the new Delta Force game that's coming out. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. I love the first one, so I'm excited for this one.
So do I, yeah.
And that was it. That's all of them. 2 out of many. So
nice.
2 out of a
it's
massive
a real good.
list.
Yeah.
Kingdom Come Deliverance. I quite like the Power Rangers beat 'em up.
Oh yeah, that looked good. I hope it's good.
Yeah, that looked like a lot of fun. Other than that, Dune Awakening, which Jason found an article on, which we're not going to have time to go over, but is essentially like an alternate history if stuff played differently in Dune, which made me go, oh, I don't care now.
Yeah, exactly. That, and so apparently Jessica didn't defy the Bene Gesserits and had a daughter instead of Paul. So there is no Lisan al Gaib. There's no what is it they call him, the Kwisatz Haderach. There's none of that. And I'm sitting there going, well, then why would I play this game?
Because Dune. Jason.
Yeah.
Well, it's an MMO, so it's just a time waster anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can be.
I think what's going to happen is people are going to give the game a miss for the most part, because if they're fans of Dune, they'll be fans of Dune for the story that Frank Herbert wrote, not
Hardcore fans,
its
maybe, but
alternate
people who came
timeline
in for the
garbage.
movie, Jason, they'll play it because it's Dune, because it's the hot IP.
Maybe.
I'm not saying I like it, but it's like for us to sit here and go like, wow, if you're a hardcore fan, it's like most of them aren't hardcore fans. Alan Wake 2 DLC, I don't care. I hate Alan Wake 2. I love Alan Wake 1. Yeah, not a lot of standouts for me, honestly, going through a bunch of content. But
aren't you going to buy the Quidditch game, Rhett?
No.
Dragon Ball.
I
and
screamed
the Monkey King game, Jason.
Yeah, Jason likes to talk about the Monkey King. You buy the Monkey King game? No?
Play as Monkey Man.
The PlayStation thing, God of War Ragnarok is coming to PC. Dynasty Warriors Origin coming. There were some interesting options. There's a new VR game coming from the people that made Walking Dead Saints and Sinners. This was announced, I think, hinted to a while back, but Behemoth looks great. We are getting a Metro Exodus or Metro game in VR, which is going to be a blast for me, who is interested in Metro, which might be a game solely made for me, and I might be the only one that buys it. Silent Hill 2 is coming, which everybody's saying that they're going to mess up. Oh, and we're getting a sequel to Death Stranding, Ross. Get psyched for that.
Oh, thank God. The great storytelling from Kojima that I always wanted again. Yay.
I'm going to go through a bunch of news really quickly so that we can get to our Rings of Power review of episode 2 and Ross, perhaps some impressions of episode 1.
Yes.
I'm going to read through these really quickly. Assassin's Creed subreddit started banning people from disliking the combat and pointing out that Ubisoft has DI agenda. Apparently, they're just mass banning on the subreddit. There have been a lot of Japanese criticism coming out about the show, especially in the comments of the trailer on YouTube. A lot of one standout comment, if I recall, was, I didn't know what how do you describe it? I didn't know what cultural appropriation was, but now I do, sort of thing. So they're not positive impressions coming from people about Assassin's Creed Shadows. The best anime of 2024 so far. Jason, give us some quick impressions.
Apparently, My Hero Academia is on this list. Apparently, we've got kind of a Power Rangers spoof. The one that was interesting to me was the Apothecary Diaries. Scroll back up a bit.
Yep.
There was keep going. It was this one, the one right there. The Raven does not choose its master. That one, the visuals looked amazing.
It looks interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Sign of Affection. It is so.
These are ones that.
Yeah, it's
Go for it.
I'm not saying it's bad. It is far too. The description of syrupy sweet is literally my mother was sitting there cringing at how awkward and sweet like blushing and longing looks at one another and cutesy, and it's like, oh.
When your mother is
me and Silver are huge fans of Freerun, which is an amazing show. We would say this is the best of the year, right, Silver?
Oh God.
This one is interesting. Delicious in the dungeon,
I've
or
heard
delicious in
good
dungeon.
things.
Apparently, like the one of the characters gets eaten by a dragon, and so the party is eating their way through the dungeon to get strong enough to take out the dragon. So yeah.
Moving really quickly, Suicide Squad lost Warner Brothers $200 million, which is apparently $25 million more than the original 2016 movie. How much it cost to make. So literally it lost more money than the movie cost to make. Let's see. Metal Slug Tactics emerges with a new trailer. I'm interested in a tactics game. Acolyte's Backlash and Review Bombing
it's kind
explained.
of an odd one there where you've got the Metal Slug, which is typically a run and gun, and they're changing it into a tactics, like Final Fantasy tactic kind of thing. Interesting. Maybe it'll work.
Netflix is making a brand new Ghostbuster series.
No.
Yeah,
I'm sure it'll be great.
Yeah.
Based off the last movie.
And
no high expectations.
And anything we didn't get to, we're gonna have to save for later. Lots of it going on. Inevitably, we had to talk about Acolyte. Acolyte's the big hotness right now. But I as far as I'm concerned, like, are you interested in, just as a quick poll of everybody, are any of you interested in anything coming out about Star Wars, or would even trust it?
Nope.
Nope.
No.
Okay.
Not even slightly.
I think Star Wars is dead.
I mean, look, Star Wars has been dead for me for a long time.
Yeah.
We all vote nay.
Yeah. I don't think that's a good sign for people who were previously quite large fans of Star Wars. Just saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I spent time making that. I gotta take down our Rings of Power meme. Now as I slowly bring up Jason saying awkwardly, Jason, it's all you.
So this week we have Moon Knight versus the Punisher.
I'm a Moon Knight fan.
That's our matchup for this week. Moon Knight is 6'2", and he is 225 pounds. He is a martial artist. He has superhuman strength, and he's an expert in hand-to-hand combat.
And the power of the moon.
Probably one thing that I should have put on here that wasn't listed on the website is that not only is he a hand-to-hand combatant, he's also very experienced in weapons combat. He was for a very long time a mercenary. And interestingly enough, he actually started out kind of as a bad guy. But his origin was changed kind of, I think, because people sort of liked Moon Knight, and so they created a new kind of origin for him. He's often considered to be the Batman. What was that?
Yeah, he's a Batman type. I have some of the Moon Knight graphic novels of the few they've made.
Yeah. And he is facing off today against Punisher.
Yay.
Punisher, 6'1", 200 pounds. He's human strength. He is unarmed and hand-to-hand combatant. He has superior marksmanship and apparently pain immunity. His fighting skills are about the only thing. What was that?
Well, I don't know about pain immunity. Sheer will, maybe, but.
Well, it says that this is from Marvel's website. This is the list of his powers, if you will. His fighting skill is higher than Moon Knight's, but that's about it.
Maybe with guns, but
yeah.
Like always, whenever I deal with these matchups, I have to walk through mentally how the fight would play out. Because it would be easy to say, oh, well, Punisher. Moon Knight should beat him in hand-to-hand.
Yeah, I mean...
Should. Punisher is one of those characters where if he's prepared enough...
Is often... Yeah.
He can beat a guy because he anticipates what they're going to do and that sort of thing. I think on most situations, Punisher beats him, unfortunately. And
not only that, but Punisher is much more ruthless.
Well, yeah, he's going to kill him,
in my estimation.
If they fight, he's going to murder Moon Knight. The problem. The problem with discussing a Punisher is that his issue will show up with every person he fights whenever we go over this. It's like, well, if he has enough time to prepare, he can get ready for whatever his opponent's magic is or whatever issues are, and then he's unstoppable. And I don't like, because people do this with Batman. It's like, well, Batman can. It's like it puts them into far too epic of a scale of unstoppableness, because Punisher could prepare and he could take out anybody because he'll get the right bullets or set up traps or whatever.
I would say that in this case that it's kind of a situation where they're thrown into a death match with not much preparation on either side.
Right.
This isn't a, hey, I've entered this tournament, so I'm going to make sure that I know everything that's going on. This is kind of like they're snatched by the Beyonder and thrown into a ring.
So Jason the Beyonder threw them into a ring.
Yeah.
In that case, I might start to consider Moon Knight having more of an edge, but I'm still honestly leading Punisher. I'm just gonna say.
Hey, I have a hard time with this one because on the one hand, Moon Knight actually does have some superhuman abilities that were granted to him by Khonshu, whereas Punisher is just a man. But in the way that they fight, I would see like Moon Knight. I would see him being kind of reluctant to do this, whereas Punisher would have no qualms.
How about
the fight starts and he's.
How about we give a qualifier here? What makes Batman
Sure.
so awesome?
Rich.
Well, yes. How about dead parents as a motivator?
Yeah.
Punisher has a dead family. Moon Knight doesn't have that.
Definitely.
Punisher has a greater motivation.
That's true.
Punisher's got the magic power of dead kids.
Oh gosh.
Dead wife.
Okay, he wins.
In this case, I can see Punisher coming out on top. Mostly because I see Moon Knight being much more the reluctant combatant in this case.
Well, and it's funny.
I think we give it to Punisher in this.
We could find a situation where we have a Punisher versus Daredevil, and I'm going to lean Daredevil, but it's like Moon Knight's also a martial arts guy, and he has powers that Daredevil doesn't. But I've seen Daredevil fight Punisher, and Daredevil usually wins. So it's like we're going to have this waffling back and forth of maybe the decisions we're making are based off of who
Daredevil
we like
is
more.
a very different kind of person than Moon Knight.
But that's not the point. Moon Knight does have powers. Daredevil does not necessarily have.
Right.
I mean, he has I can hear you powers.
Which is why Daredevil fights to put people down. He knows that he doesn't have that edge that superpowers gives other people, so he goes into a fight very much like Punisher does, where I've got to put this guy down because if I don't, it's going to come back to haunt me.
Well, sure, but I'm predicting
whereas
a
Moon
problem.
Knight doesn't really have that.
I'm predicting a problem where Punisher has now beaten somebody who has powers that maybe Daredevil doesn't, and now somehow we're going to argue that Daredevil beats Punisher when Moon Knight has edges that Daredevil doesn't, and we're going to go, oh, well, Daredevil wins, and it's going to look cheap because we're not being fair. Look, I'm doing the best I can. Part of the problem with doing these fights is you have biases. I could see a situation where Moon Knight wins.
It's subjective all the way.
I could see a situation where Moon Knight wins, but I think Punisher wins this situation, if I'm being honest. So
I come down on the side of Punisher too. I think it's the margin here is very narrow.
Raw, Silver, anything?
Yeah, I agree with Punisher.
Awesome.
The dead family thing is way too. He's overpowered at that point.
Dead kids motivation. Ross?
Yeah.
Okay, next week we are going to have Jessica Jones versus Luke Cage. So look forward to
Oh,
that.
good lord. I think Ross has left us for Valinor.
Oh yeah, I'm
Oh,
here.
no.
Sorry.
He's checked out.
I mean, I was gonna pick Punisher. Didn't Moon Knight work at a museum now? Doesn't he go into dreams or something? I don't know. I don't know superheroes. What happened?
He has a weird god thing attached to him. I don't know.
Gross. Guy with
He
the
also
guns. It's angry. He wins.
He also has multiple
Good
personalities, which is fun. He's insane.
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot about that.
It seems
Yeah.
like a detriment.
Yeah, it should be a detriment. As opposed to all Punisher has is PTSD.
Punisher has rage and guns.
He does. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. If you have like, comment, subscribe, whatever. Jason, leave us with anything.
Jeez.
Nah, I don't have anything. I'm gonna finish. I'm gonna finish the book that I was reading, but I don't know much more than that for next week. So
Okay, Jason tapping out. Ross, what do you got?
God, what? Let's see. Watch Hercules, the legendary stories. It's great and terrible, and makes you miss the '90s when TV was fun and lighthearted. This Lord of the Rings show is crap. This Rings of Power show is terrible, and I definitely look forward to seeing another episode.
Yay!
Silver.
don't we all?
Silver. Silver, do you have anything?
Well,
I'm gonna
I guess
strangle you.
in the words of weird sibling from Rings of Power, be like boat, look up, don't look down like rock. Also, Carol Baskin did it.
Carol Baskin super did it.
That bitch Carol Baskin.
Well, thanks everybody for coming along. We're gonna get out of here. Blah blah blah. Goodbye.
If you like the show, follow Rhett, Jason, Ross, and Silver, the world's most lethally stupid internet personalities, on Twitter at DG Podcast or on Instagram at Distracted Gamers. If you liked or hated what you heard here today, you can email them at thedistractedgamers@gmail.com and share your feelings. Not that Jason would care, since he hasn't any, of course.
Oh my God, it's so juicy.